And when the lights go out, the moment Jamie and Dakota split left Hollywood silent. On the final day of filming for 50 Shades Freed, the sun was pouring down on the roof of the Vancouver studio. The atmosphere on the set was unusually heavy, even though it was supposed to be a joyous farewell. Everyone knew that after 3 films full of controversy, ups and downs, and sleepless nights, this was the last scene for Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan as Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey, 2 people who had made the world crazy, the world argued, and themselves. Changed forever. It wasn't a hot scene. It wasn't a bed scene like everyone thought. But a very ordinary scene, Christian looking at Anastasia in the kitchen, as she smiled, her hair falling in the sun. A simple line, "Do you think love really exists, Anna?" And Anna looked at him, not smiling, not saying anything, just nodding. Director James Foley sat behind the monitor. He knew this was the most important scene, not because of the script, but because it marked the end of a special bond between the 2 actors, not just on screen, but off. Jamie walked slowly to his position. Dakota was already sitting at the table, holding a fake cup of coffee. The camera rolled. No one breathed heavily. When Jamie blurted out the question, "Do you think true love exists, Anna?" Dakota didn't look at him right away. She looked down at her hands, real hands, not staged, then raised her head, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't nod, she whispered, "Yes, but I let it go." Foley stood. Everyone looked confused. It wasn't a line in the script. Jamie froze. For a moment, no one knew who was speaking, Dakota or Anna. Jamie fell silent, then stepped forward, took her hand, his lips pursed as if he were swallowing something. The camera kept rolling. No one called, "Cut." After a long moment, Foley signaled, "Cut." And then, no one said anything. The studio was dead silent, too. It started like an accident, ended like destiny. When 50 Shades of Grey began filming in 2014, both Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson were looking for a hit to make a name for themselves. Dakota, with her classic beauty and eyes that always seemed to know something you didn't, had a demeanor that was half rebellious, half gentle. Jamie, calm, cool, polite, was cast after Charlie Hunnam dropped out of the project. From the first day they met, they didn't get along in the usual way. Dakota liked to joke. Jamie was reserved. Dakota took the initiative. Jamie kept his distance. But that was what created the strange chemistry, a hidden attraction that made the audience unable to look away. A crew member once said, "No one understood how they could act out such uncomfortable scenes so realistically." There were shoots where the whole crew was breathless. Not because of the sex scenes, but because of the obvious emotions between the 2. Dakota once joked in an interview, "Working with Jamie is like falling in love with someone you're not allowed to fall in love with. And having to pretend like nothing happened. Jamie has always been private. But on a rare occasion, he admitted, when I stepped out of the role of Christian Grey, there was a part of me that felt lost, like I left a part of myself in that penthouse. And I never got it back." 3. Behind the scenes, the close encounters, then the retreat. People often assumed they were a couple in real life. In fact, they weren't. Jamie is married to actress Amelia Warner, and has always kept a professional distance. Dakota has been private about her personal life, only appearing with Chris Martin for many years. But behind the scenes, there were moments everyone saw. Eye contact lingering longer than usual, hands touching and then pulling away a beat too late, a glance as the other person turned away. Jamie once stood backstage, silently watching Dakota perform her monologue in season 2. When she finished, he was the first to clap, even though he wasn't in the scene. Rumor has it that one night, after filming wrapped, the whole crew went out for drinks at a Vancouver bar. Jamie and Dakota sat next to each other. No one heard what they said, but everyone saw them silently staring at each other for nearly 10 minutes, then Dakota stood up first and walked away. Jamie didn't look back, but when she was out of sight, he stood up and left, without saying a word. The last scene wasn't in the script. Back to the last day of filming, 50 Shades Freed was the finale. And the director wanted to end the film on a light, family note, without drama. But Dakota asked for a special exception, a goodbye scene. A scene that wasn't promoted. Not in the trailer, not in the poster, just one last scene, for the two of them. Dakota rewrote Anna's line in that scene, without warning. Yes, but I let it go. Jamie, upon hearing that, was silent for nearly 15 seconds before replying, "You're still here, even though I can't see you." No one on the set knew if they were acting or telling the truth. But Foley let the camera roll for another minute. No one said anything, they just looked at each other. A look that lasted 3 full movies. When Foley called, "Cut," Dakota stood up and walked away, not looking back. Jamie sat there, like Christian, like himself, silently. Versus Hollywood is silent. When the scene was screened internally for producers, no one spoke for 5 minutes after it ended. Some suggested cuts, too personal, too explicit. But the director kept it. He said it was the first time they actually broke up. Not Anna and Christian, Jamie and Dakota. When the film was officially released, audiences around the world felt something very different in the final scene. No words, no pounding music, no climax, just a look, an unfinished word, and a silence. Many critics called it the most honest cinematic ending of the year. Some articles said that moment made us understand there are relationships that never need to be confirmed, but they last forever. It is love that has never been spoken. Vi. After the end, nothing left to say. Dakota, in a later interview, was asked about the final scene. She just said, "I don't remember if it was me or Anna. But maybe, it doesn't matter." Jamie never talked about the final scene. But in 2021, in a short interview with GQ magazine, when asked about the most difficult thing about filming 50 Shades, he replied, "Not the sex scene, but the last day, when the camera turned off, I was still sitting there. And I felt like I had just lost something I never dared to name." 7. People love each other in many ways. Not every love story needs to end with a hug, a kiss, or a confession. There are feelings that quietly pass through life, never named, but never forgotten. Jamie and Dakota have gone through 3 movies, hundreds of days of filming, thousands of hours together. They loved each other. Not in the traditional way, but in a way that only those who shared pain, vulnerability, and soul through the screen can understand. And then, they broke up, not just as characters, but as themselves. On film, in front of the camera. In the final glow of 50 Shades, the moment left Hollywood speechless, not because of shock, but because no one knew what to say. Because it was so real.